so excited to have you back here on the Crypto Couch, where today we're going to cover how you can leverage cryptocurrency for crowdfunding. What is crowdfunding, you might be asking? Well, we're about to give you the scoop. So stay tuned, keep watching to keep learning, to keep earning.
CryptoTutors, 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 hey.
It's a way. Making money in my sleep? Making money in my sleep.
So happy to have each and every one of you here today. We have, again, one of my favorite words whenever we host the Crypto Couch and we get to have conversations with the leaders that are driving and spearheading the charge into the present future, is the fact that juggernauts, right? The fact that we have Maureen Murat here with us today, who is also my Haitian sister from another mister. We were just talking about that before we started recording. And I'm just so thrilled to have the honor, the privilege to share her genius with the world. Maureen, my goodness, like, I don't even know where to begin with respect to the accolades associated and the credentials associated with what you're doing in the industry. But I would love to just take a moment to educate folks on your background. Tell us a little bit about you being an attorney, but tell us a little bit about, you know, your history, your work history, and then we can segue into crowdfunding, crypto, and all that good stuff.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on the Crypto Couch. I'm super excited. So my journey, yes, I am an attorney, and I guess I should start out with this, right? That I am an attorney, but I am not your attorney. So anything that I share with you today is for informational purposes only. I always suggest people do their own research and seek advice from people, especially with something like crypto and crowdfunding. They're both kind of, I think they work well together, but each side has their own regulatory challenges. So you definitely want to do your own research. So
yes. True attorney.
Yes.
Disclaimer, legal disclaimer.
Right. So I am an attorney. I have been practicing for almost 5 years now, which is crazy. But, before that, I had decided to get into crowdfunding because of me thinking that this was something that could really help small businesses. I was going to work for a startup as like a legal officer after I graduated law school. This was back in 2016, and things didn't work out with that startup. But then I realized there's some things I could do without them. My plan was to help people fill out the Form C and their regulatory documentation they'd have to do with the different regulators for crowdfunding. And so I was like, okay, well, I'll just start doing this on my own. And then that's how Crowdie Advisors kind of, was born. But then years go by, you meet people, which is what has been really great about the blockchain and crypto community.
Yes.
You just meet people. I met Tanya Evans, amazing. And I think we met back in 2018 at like South by Southwest. And at that event, we had discussed a little bit about doing education. She's an educator, right? She is a professor of law.
Wait, who is this?
Tanya Evans.
Tanya Evans, yes. She's a friend to the Crypto Couch. We just interviewed her early in the week.
Oh, okay, great. So you got and you had Club Mezzador, so you got the heavy hitters on the couch.
We ain't playing games. Straight to the top, okay? The juggernaut to the space.
Right. Well, I mean, with her leadership and her vision, creating a blockchain and cryptocurrency in the law program at the University of New Hampshire School of Law, I was brought on to teach in that program, which has also been really helpful and, kind of finding my footing in the space, as you can imagine. I teach tokenomics and cryptocurrency regulations, smart cities, and I've also done blockchain in the law. So all that to say, like, there's a lot going on in the background, but I'm really enjoying myself, even when there are some, challenges.
Okay. So, it's so interesting because one of the challenges I think with crypto and blockchain is that the terminology, there's so much technical jargon, for lack of a better word. And so you said a few things, you talked about tokenomics and, even before we start to unpack that, let's talk a little bit about what is crowdfunding. How would you define crowdfunding?
So crowdfunding, generally speaking, right, because there are different types of crowdfunding and what is expected in return. But crowdfunding generally is the putting together small amounts of money, like people putting small amounts of money towards a goal. And this small amount of money would come from a large group of people, and they would put it towards this goal or common objective. So it could be for a charitable purpose, it could be for a business, it could be for a real estate project, but generally speaking, everyone's putting some money towards it with an end goal in mind.
Like a Kickstarter campaign, Indiegogo, I feel as though, or some of the more maybe long lasting or tenured in the space. And what's interesting about the crowdfunding arena is that, especially as it relates to crypto, now you're starting to see more opportunities for perhaps retail investors to get involved, because historically, to become an investor in a company, you needed to be accredited. And when we say accredited, can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. But before I get into the definition, for Indiegogo and Kickstarter platforms, they do have crowdfunding campaigns, but they're a specific type of crowdfunding campaign. And generally, they are rewards-based crowdfunding, which means that as a result of people putting money towards this project, they get a perk or some sort of a discount, or maybe they're the first person to get that product. And that's what makes them kind of popular, right? You're really starting off, helping a business start off. So for equity and debt crowdfunding, generally speaking, that was reserved for accredited investors. Mm-hmm. And an accredited investor is someone who makes $100,000, $200,000, up to $200,000 a year for the last 2 years, or $300,000 if you're married, or you have $1 million in assets, not including your home. The SEC recently, last fall, they updated some of their requirements for what an accredited investor can be. And so now they've added education requirements. So if you have certain licenses from the SEC, you could be considered an accredited investor. Another option is if you are working for a fund, like a VC fund, if you are considered someone who has experience, that could consider you an accredited investor. They have others, but those are the two most popular ones.
And by virtue of updating like the rules to be considered a accredited investor, do you feel as though it's opening up the market for more people to throw their hat in the ring when it comes to getting in, companies pre-IPO and so forth, which is historically been kind of relegated to folks of like significant means, the 1%ers?
Right. Well, yes and no. Yes,
okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah. So yes, it will open doors for more people, just because by virtue of not necessarily meeting the thresholds for money, but you have maybe experience, etc. But I say no at the same time, because there are still some people who don't have access to those experiences, who don't have access to taking an SEC test, or who don't have time to take an SEC test. You know what I mean? So I say yes and no. I think it's a step in the right direction. So I'm just hoping that, as time goes on, they'll creak the door open just a little bit more.
I appreciate your guidance on that, because I feel as though, the new updated rules are not necessarily something that, they're not as well known. And to your point around a step in the right direction, there's a lot of room to grow. And there's a lot of it's necessary for more folks to understand what's happening in relation to the SEC and governance, because in the vein of crypto, there have been a lot of, it's a gray area in many respects. And we're going to cross that bridge momentarily, but I want to circle back to crowdfunding, because you had mentioned that there are a couple of different types of crowdfunding. When we spoke about accredited investors, you had mentioned that debt and equity was, I guess, the categorization associated with that type of crowdfunding. What are some of the other aspects of crowdfunding?
Sure. So there's donation-based crowdfunding, which is just what it sounds like. People are putting money towards a common goal. Normally, it's a charitable purpose, and they don't expect anything in return. And so they're just giving it out of the goodness of their heart. And it could be for a business as well. So I won't say it's not. This could serve as someone's seed round, like their very first, investments into their business, but except that the people who are putting the money towards that aren't expecting anything in return. They just want to see you do well. And then we talked a little bit about rewards-based crowdfunding, which is where in return for whatever money is put towards a project, the person is expecting a perk or a discount or some access that makes them feel a little bit special for for helping you meet your goals.
Yep.
And then we have equity and debt. Equity in exchange for investments, you have equity or ownership interest in the business. For debt in exchange for the investment, you're essentially getting a loan from an individual or from a group of individuals who have put money into this pot, if you will, to help your business grow. There are different ways to pay that back. There are, and I'll just name a few. I know we may not get to all of them, but like revenue sharing agreements or just a straightforward payment arrangement. Every month, whatever you pay, a little bit of it will go to the different investors who put towards your project. And another one for startups that's also becoming popular, I think, is royalty-based crowdfunding, which is essentially for creatives and artists who are looking for ways to bypass going through like a production company or a manager and all those people who, often take a very big chunk of their revenue before they can get any funds. So by doing a royalty-based crowdfunding campaign, you're allowing your supporters, your backers to either help you fund the project. And then on the back end, when let's say you're doing, a play or a movie, they help you fund it, you hire whoever you need to do, you film it. And then when it goes live and you make, whatever funds you expect to make from it, then you can pay your backers back, if you will. So those are the types for startups. And I think they all have their benefits. There's no one size fits all. You as an entrepreneur, you as a startup can mix and match, if you will. Like you could still do a rewards crowdfunding and also do an SEC equity-based crowdfunding. We can also, and I guess we'll talk about this later with the cryptos, but you can also have an equity-based crowdfunding campaign and have perks attached with that without having to do a rewards-based crowdfunding campaign as well.
What's interesting about that point that you just made is that there are a variety of ways to leverage crowdfunding, and it could be a combination of rewards, royalties, et cetera, debt, et cetera. And so again, right, the reason why we wanted to have you come on the show to, enlighten folks about how this could potentially empower them in their own entrepreneurial endeavors. What would be required for someone who is interested, if we take the royalties aspect, for example, what does it look like for someone, or let me rephrase that question. Can you walk us through the process of what someone who is interested in like the royalties-based play, for instance, since that's relatively new, very exciting, especially as we start to think about non-fungible tokens and the NFT world and in relation to crypto. But could you perhaps walk us through what it could look like if someone were to go the royalty route? Where would they start?
Sure. So there are a number of platforms, actually Indiegogo and Kickstarter. I'm not being sponsored to mention them. It's just that they're really popular.
He's just trying to put you on a game and let you know where you might want to explore, platforms. Right.
Explore. So they have options for creatives. There are other options such as Seed, and I think it's Seed and Grow or Seed and Chase. So there are plenty. Like if you go online and just research and Google, royalty-based crowdfunding campaigns. There are about 10 that are doing this, I think, successfully, right? So that means they have campaigns on their website. They have people who actually go there to see what kind of deals they can get in on, or what kind of campaigns or objectives they can support. So before you even get on a platform, regardless of what kind of crowdfunding you're doing, you have to have a few things in order, right? You have to know what your goal is. You have to know who your target market is. You have to know what you're going to do with the funds once you raise it. And you should also be mindful of the fact that all of these platforms have some sort of a fee structure. So you want to keep that in mind when it's time to raise funds. If a platform is taking 5 or up to 7% of whatever you raise, is that going to make or break you? Or maybe you should increase your goal so that you have a little bit of a cushion. The other thing to really be mindful of is the terms. So when these people give you these funds, for whatever reason, you want it to be very clear that people know what they're going to get in return. If they're going to get a t-shirt, it's not just going to be a t-shirt, right? It's going to be a t-shirt that says at Crowdie Advisors on it. It's black, it has white writing. You want to be as specific as possible, because even though you don't necessarily have to go through for royalty base, even though you don't have to necessarily go through like the SEC to register, you still have to be mindful of consumer protection laws, which cover whatever type of business you're in. It doesn't matter. So in that instance, if you're saying, if you give me this, I will give you something in return, then the expectation is that you will give them that thing, in return. So then you get onto the platform, you submit the documentation that they ask you for, and then you start raising. Now, the marketing for
raising, yes. Look at us democratizing venture capitalism. Okay, hold up.
Right. I'm oversimplifying, but you get to the point where you got all your stuff in, you're ready to get that, raise that money, and then you have to tell people about it, right? Like, how else are people going to know about this awesome thing you have going on, this awesome project, if you're not telling people about it, which I think is one of the things that really hurts crowdfunders.
Yep.
And so marketing, the marketing aspect. But yeah, so once you market, you get your funds. Before you get your funds, as I said before, the platform takes a fee. But, then you are able to use those funds for the reasons that you said you would. And then you go create your project and you share the revenues with your supporters.
Well, first and foremost, if they really want even more keys, because just your major keys you're dropping right now, like, they should go to Crowdie Advisors, and we're going to make sure that you have all of the, and this show was not sponsored by Crowdie Advisors either.
No.
No, but in all seriousness, you definitely want to go and get the guidance that you need to protect yourself. You mentioned some really great elements of consideration, the consumer protection laws being one of them. Also, too, making sure that when it comes to just what you're offering, that specificity,
right.
You are as specific as possible. This is really important because we want to make sure that the viewers of the Crypto Couch are set up for success, which is why we bring subject matter experts like Maureen to the couch to ensure that we're educating. And the idea is to educate and apply what you're learning to, again, transform knowledge into wealth. So, Maureen, another thing I wanted to ask you about, are there any campaigns that you've seen executed exceptionally well? An example of what to do, an example of what not to do, campaign-wise.
Sure. So, since we're talking about cryptos and crowdfunding, I'll bring one in that had a crypto element to it. So I've seen a campaign. I'm sure many of your viewers have probably heard of Popcom. That is
Dawn Dixon. Can we just shout out
yeah.
Dawn Dixon right quick? Maybe you could put in a good word for us because we need to have her on the Crypto Couch. Maureen is going to break down why Dawn Dixon is the but let's see in the comments. We want to make sure that if you're familiar with Dawn Dixon, we give her all the flowers and all the props that she deserves. Sorry, Maureen, to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make sure that our viewers in the comments are showing all the love. Go ahead.
No, I mean, we had an idea that you could raise money with cryptos, because when you think about, how those, ICOs were, they're kind of like crowdfunding, right? People
wait. ICOs are initial coin offerings.
Initial coin offerings, yes.
We should explain what that is before we dive into Dawn's story, because people might not know what ICO is and how it sort of shaped the industry, if that's all right with you.
So an ICO is where a company, a blockchain-based company, creates these tokens so that they can sell to their backers as a means to raise money or capital for their business. So normally it's relatively small amounts of money that people are putting towards this project, but the goal is to raise, a certain number. And so all those people put money towards that goal. The issue with that is that, and the issue that has been with that continues to be an issue right now, is that this is an unregulated activity, and the Securities and Exchange Commission, they regulate these types of sales because essentially people are investing into a business with an expectation of a profit. And that is something that is being offered to these investors when they're participating in these ICOs, initial coin offerings. So comparing an ICO to like a Reg CF campaign, the main difference is the lack of regulation with ICOs.
So when you say ICO, I want folks to kind of have something to contextualize ICO. Think IPO. Right? Your initial public offering, your initial coin offering, which is part of the reason why ICOs have some gotten into trouble with the SEC, but just wanted to put that out there too.
Yes. And what's so good about regulation crowdfunding and Regulate Plus crowdfunding is that even though you're getting options to act as though you're a public company raising money, even though you're a small private company, right? So the Reg CF is actually an exemption from reporting as though you are an IPO, as though you are a public company. So with that,
CF, though, that's something I don't know. What's Reg CF?
Regulation crowdfunding. We just call it Reg CF for short. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yes. So with Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, it's an exception to the rule where, if you're doing an IPO and you're going public, you have to have all this reporting. Now, that doesn't mean that you won't have any reporting at all, because that's just not how regulatory agencies work, right? So you will still have to report annually to the SEC, but the reporting process is a lot less onerous or laborious than it would be if you were a public company. So hopefully that kind of level set the playing field. So essentially, something that came out of the ICO craze was the STO, right? The security token offering. And in that instance, people are like, okay, SEC, we hear you. We're paying attention. We see all these enforcement actions, and we are okay with saying that our token is a security in the sense that we are still going to create our tokens and issue them, but we know that, we are seeking investment in a business with the expectation of giving our investors some profit at some point in the future, even though it's not guaranteed. There's no guarantee in all of this. So with Dawn Dickson, what she did was she used Reg CF, regulation crowdfunding, to raise up to $1 million. She's actually done it a few times. So I'm just going based on her first time, because after she did it the first time, you can replicate the process. But so she did it the first time, and she was able to, in addition to offering equity in her business, she also offered a token kicker. So that means that this token would give you the option to have access to certain her ecosystem, because Popcom is a SaaS company, but what they're mainly doing is providing access to certain types of products in vending machines, right? So they're really building the technology, but it's in the form of, this cute vending machine. So what's so great about that
super revolutionary though. Like, can we just have a moment? Like, when Maureen is saying SaaS-based, she's saying software as a service.
Yes,
so
sorry.
We're not just talking about like hardware, which are the vending machines themselves, but also like the tech behind it, the software behind it that's sort of managing the management aspect of it through software. So this is an extremely innovative concept. So again, we want to see in the comments if you're familiar with the use case, Popcom, and are familiar with Dawn Dickson. We got to get her on the show. We're going to put that out there. And this episode, Maureen, and be like, Maureen said.
No, she's great. Yes. So that's one way to do it, right? And we can talk about other examples too, but I'll just talk about like an example where it just didn't work. I won't name the company in this one. just because and I'll caveat that with saying, just because you don't do it right or do it well the first time, let's say, doesn't mean you can't come back and, learn from your mistakes and go at it another time. And so, like as I said earlier, one of the main issues is the marketing, getting the word out about whatever it is offering. And so I've seen one company in particular try to raise money and not be able to because they can't get the conversion, right? They can't get enough people to really be excited or care about what it is that they're trying to do, such that they would put their money towards it, knowing that they may never see it again. So, there are a few layers to this, crowdfunding thing. It's really great. It's a great way to raise capital, but there are these moving parts that you have to be aware of. And one thing I'll say about some of the Reg CF or regulation crowdfunding platforms is that generally speaking, you have a low and a high. So you have a minimum goal and a maximum goal. And if you can't make $10,000, if you can't raise $10,000 within a certain amount of time, normally it's 30 to 60 days, then you're not going to raise whatever it is that you thought you were going to raise, right? Because the other thing about these crowdfunding campaigns is momentum. You have to be always increasing, the amount that you're raising. So not that just the people who have invested are into it, but you want the people who invested to tell their friends, to tell their other friends, and for you to continue to look for other people who might be interested, which is where marketing.
It's like how the network affects. How the network effect plays into microfinancing in a way, right?
Right.
Because clearly, when you're thinking about just the dollar amount associated with the investments, in some instances it might be $100, it might be $1,000. So, Maureen, let's dig into how crypto is playing in the crowdfunding world. Tell us a little bit more about how that marriage is coming about, and kind of what some of the exciting aspects of the convergence of crypto and crowdfunding, what they are.
Sure. So I'm sure most of your viewers know what cryptos are, but just to give a quick little, cryptos are these digital assets, right? And they, what's so great about them is, even though we talk a lot about them in the sense of financial transactions, they can represent other things, right? And the benefit of that is because of, the cryptography and the ability to track it and not double spend or even double or have inaccurate information being, transacted or transferred on a blockchain.
That's that blockchain. Do your research.
Can't mess with that blockchain, right? And it's true. There are so many different uses. And like you said, we could go on and on. I mean, I teach on it and still it's not enough time sometimes. Especially because we as individuals, we can be so creative, right? So if you can create something, and this is how all these startups, these great things that come out that we're so we can't do without them now, right? They might have started to come out kind of weird before, but as an example, and I'm going off on a tangent a little bit. I remember when IG came out, before IG came out, people were posting pictures of their food on Facebook. And I was like, why? Yeah. Why? So IG was like, you know what? Y'all can come post your food pictures here. And look at it now.
Exactly. And Facebook ended up acquiring Instagram. So, I mean, it's come full circle.
Right, exactly. So, and now they're doing all types of stuff. But I say that to say, all these businesses, crypto or no crypto, by creating this awareness around something that gets people interested, that's what you want. But you want people to be able to access that ecosystem in a way that's, fair and equitable as well, right? So if you have these cryptos, let's say, and you want to use them, I'll give two examples. So one way you could use crypto with crowdfunding, because remember we said crowdfunding is essentially a large group of people putting small amounts of money towards a project, a goal, a business, etc. And then you take this cryptocurrency that can either represent a financial transaction or it can represent data. And let's say this data is ownership interest in that company that you crowdfunded for. So what that means is when it's, I'm trying not to be too technical, but under the crowdfunding rules, the only way, so there's what we call a lockup period. It's a 12-month period where if you purchase securities in a business, you cannot trade, sell, exchange it for 12 months.
Yep.
But after the 12 months, you have a little freedom. But remember, we said that a crowdfunding company is not a public company. So where are you going to trade, exchange, or sell your shares or your ownership equity? It's not going to be on a stock exchange, right? It has to be somewhere else. So right now, because crowdfunding is technically still new, it's about 5 years old, being able to exchange or sell after the 12-month period, there's this like liquidity gap. And so what crypto can do is create this secondary market that's easily exchangeable, right? You have this crypto in hand, this crypto represents interest in your business. Let's say the business is doing really well and you want to sell, half of your ownership interest. Right now, the way the rules are, if you do it within what's called an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, which is where essentially in a crowdfunding campaign, they put all the investors into one LLC, limited liability company, so that you can raise money and not just have 2,000 people on your cap table. Your cap table is just a listing of all the people who have invested in your business. So if you don't have that, you can scrap that. Now you have the SPV that's going to kind of consolidate all of the investors, and then you can only exchange with the people in that SPV. But with cryptos, you don't have to do that, right? If you have a crypto showing your ownership interest, then there's a possibility that you can exchange that on a secondary market. Now, there still has to be a secondary market created, right? So, and those are called ATSs, alternative trading systems. They're still going to go through.
Can I just say I love you? I just have to say that right now. Can we just have a moment on how dope you are? I'm literally, where the is my pencil and paper? Because I'm like, my mental notes right now, I'm just like, holy, you are dropping so many gems. I feel like everything you said is not only tweetable, but I mean, obviously you're a professor and you are dropping the knowledge and the wisdom. And I just had to acknowledge you very quickly because my mind is blown by your brilliance. Okay, enough with the flowers. Carry on.
No, I appreciate it. And please slow me down, because sometimes, when you get into it, you just.
No, I don't want to interrupt your flow. Like, I'm so enamored and so blown away by the knowledge and the wisdom. I'm truly like in my mind thinking how many different ways that your knowledge and education can impact the communities that are engaging in the crypto couch and just paying attention and looking for leaders like yourself to stay connected to. And we're going to put all of your social media channels and your website and any way that folks can engage with you and retain you and your services. And obviously as a professor, enroll potentially in your classes. Like, you just are just a gift to the world. So, okay. Carry on.
Thank you.
Haitian. Yeah. If we got any Haitians watching this show, I'm gonna need to see all the love in the comments. Haitians, I'm telling you, we are just we're the ones to watch.
Well, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. So with these cryptos, if they can, they can represent ownership interest in a business, right? So that's just the bottom line. And how that representation happens is really up to you, the company, how you want to present it to your investors. You just got to stick with it, right? Once you offer it, that's it.
Yep.
So another way that cryptos could be used, remember we said earlier that these cryptos, AKA tokens, depending on who you're talking to, some people are like, cryptos and tokens are totally different.
But wait. Maureen,
yeah.
Really quickly, with respect to the difference between, a crypto and a token, I also think it's important to note that, crypto is technically like native to the blockchain versus token. When you're thinking about like Ethereum, people are building tokens on Ethereum, the Ethereum blockchain. And so it's sort of like the difference between like a coin and a token. So we want to make sure that folks understand the difference, because if it's a coin, then it's native to its own blockchain versus a token that's built on another blockchain like Ethereum, like that ERC and what have you.
Right. And all those different protocols or, different rules around how you can use them. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And so like if you were going to take, so another example with kind of marrying, cryptos and crowdfunding is to use the token structure. That would represent something, right? It could represent access to the ecosystem. Let's say you're an artist, and it can represent access to being able to go to see your shows live, maybe not live in person, but live on, online. Or it could be used as maybe a discount because I've invested. When it's time to go to, let's say you have a brick and mortar location, I'm going to be treated really nicely. I get to have, the VIP table because I invested. Or that token could represent, so I said access or something like that would be like a discount, or it could represent even something tangible, right? Like I could exchange it in for something else. So think of that type of structure like a Chuck E. Cheese token. You go in, you buy all these tokens, you get in,
redeemed for different prizes.
Right, for different prizes, and you trade them in. So they all have these different benefits, and it really just depends on what kind of business you have. And I'm often asked, like, what's the best business for crowdfunding? There is no best one. I will say that there are some that obviously raise more money than others. Software as a service being one, breweries, restaurants, medical telehealth type products. So it just really depends. But when you look at all those different companies, even though they're in different industries, what you see is that they have, the reason why they're able to be successful is because they have supporters and because they have people who want to see, want to see the person and the business grow, but also believe in whatever it is that you're providing, such that they're like, oh, I could probably make some money off of this because I'm either going to be a user or I could see someone else using this thing. So, we talked about Popcom. So obviously, if I invested in that platform or in that business, I might be a user of the vending machine, but the SaaS, the software as a service software is being sold and developed for a business, right? So it's really a B2B type thing. And then I benefit, as a consumer as well. So that's one of the other benefits of crowdfunding, right? Your consumers can become your backers, your supporters.
There were a couple of things that you touched upon with respect to just kind of the role that like collective economics is playing in creating opportunities for, I don't want to say regular folks, but just, people who are not, wealthy by traditional, standards of wealth. They don't have, hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest, or, to your point earlier, in the vein of like accredited investors and $300,000 in income or $1 million in capital or what have you. So some of those parameters that have kind of prevented, everyday folks who, maybe blue collar folks from entering the marketplace to get involved and potentially yield a pretty substantial return. So right. One thing I wanted to say also is the community aspect. A thought came to my mind around community capitalization. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know if that's like a legitimate term, but I think that it embodies what crowdfunding is offering. And that is the ability to have the people that believe in you, your evangelists, your community that you've cultivated, give them an opportunity to be a stakeholder in your entity. And, I wanted to dig in a little bit deeper because when we think about, especially for people of color, right? Like women, for instance, when it comes to venture capital, I believe that of the, something like $100 billion in venture capital, women are, for instance, getting less than like 1% of venture capital. When you have a community behind you, and to your point earlier around marketing and just ensuring that you're elevating the work that you're doing, the problem that you're solving, why folks would want to be involved. All these elements contribute to cultivating that community, and then giving them the opportunity to become a stakeholder, again, is like moving along the continuum of how you can capitalize your businesses. Awesome. You know, one of the things that you mentioned before, and I don't know if it's necessarily articulated like this, but for lack of a better phrase, I would say community capitalization. And Maureen, one of the challenges with capitalization is, especially in this context, building the community. So I would just love to hear from you any best practices related to building that community, you know, marketing your, you know, your initiatives and projects. What are some of the best practices that folks who are watching the Crypto Couch can employ?
Sure. And before I answer that question, I just wanted to say that, you know, when you think about the community aspect of a crowdfunding campaign, I think those same attributes really fall into the crypto and blockchain community, right? People are still creating these projects. They still want to and have the people who are backing them or supporting them, who are their evangelists, you know, supporting this mission so that they can, you know, grow and scale this business, which is why I think crypto and crowdfunding work so well together. But best practices, we actually, and I know we haven't mentioned it yet, but I have my partner and I, Samson Williams, wrote a raising money workbook that has a few chapters on how to market and like what are some of the things or questions you'll need to answer before you go out there and start selling your thing. One is, and we also have a masterclass, obviously because of the pandemic, we haven't had a masterclass, but one of the things we try to impress upon participants in the masterclass is the best revenue in the world is, the best capital in the world is revenue. So before you start thinking about raising money and asking
That's
for money,
selling partnerships,
you need to
earning revenue, earning money versus like trying to raise it. So I just wanted to like caveat.
Yes, that's the point of all of this, right? You are in business. You're not in business to raise money. You're in business to earn money. So when you think about some of the best practices, one of them being, especially in terms of marketing, there are rules around marketing and what you can say before you have a Reg CF campaign. But let's say you're not selling it. You're not raising money in a Reg CF campaign. What are you telling your customers to sell your product, to sell your good, to sell your service? Like that's something that's really, really important. And I know that it can be kind of hard to kind of figure out like what would be the right words to say to someone. You know, I've experienced that too, but you have to think about like what it is this, you know, what is this thing that you're offering, and what is this problem, if there's a problem that is being served, or is it just something kind of like a luxurious thing and you still want to appeal the right people to buy it, right? Because if it's not appealing the right people, you're not going to sell it, whatever it is. So in terms of marketing, you definitely want to get the word out about what it is that you're doing. You know, the marketers of the world will tell you need to tell a story, sell the idea, sell the feeling, the experience, whatever it is. That's going to get that thing sold, right? Obviously, you're not going to do it because you're not saying these things just for the heck of it, right? You're saying them because this is the goal of whatever it is you're trying to do. Another best practice I would say is, especially when you are seeking support or backup from people, is to not be afraid to ask for help and to say thank you. I actually have a video coming out saying those two things. And when I say asking for help, a lot of times as entrepreneurs, you know, we're on this little journey and we're all overwhelmed and lonely, et cetera. We think
in our little bubble though, it can be in our little bubble.
Right. So instead of, you know, residing in this bubble and trying to figure out these problems, ask your supporters, ask your backers. You know, if you need help figuring out how to test some project or some product, ask the people who have been supporting you. Those are the best people to tell you, yeah, that works, or oh, that might be, you know, you might want to tweak that, because they're following you. So they're probably going to be honest with you, right? And then to say thank you, because I think what sometimes, you know, we lose in this back and forth about like raising money is, especially in the crowdfunding world, because you're building this community, you want to show the community that you care and that you understand and that you're grateful for what they're doing for helping you get to this point. And so a simple thank you goes a long way, and also keeping them up to date on what's going on. We have all started businesses. I guess I can speak for myself. I started businesses where it didn't turn out the way I thought it would. You know, even the Crowdie Advisors did not turn out the way that I thought it would. I never saw myself owning a business, but here we are. And so that means that there are some things that, you know, I didn't expect, or that I you know, couldn't have planned for, because I didn't really know how this would go. So as a result, like if I had investors, I would need to tell my investors this. Yo, I thought it was going to go this way, but you know, it didn't. I'm trying to get on it, or I need support, or, you know, whatever the issue is. Anything that will keep your backers, your investors, your supporters up to date or abreast of what you're doing is always a good thing. Even if it seems like you're failing, it's always a good thing to let them know what's going on.
Genius. Simple and you know, a two-step process. You talked about keeping folks informed about what's happening. You talked about asking for help when you need it. And also, I think something so simple but often overlooked is just gratitude and appreciation for those people that have been on this journey with you. Like for us to have someone of your pedigree on the Crypto Couch and just sharing your knowledge and wisdom with our community. Like, I want to be the first one to say over and over how appreciative we are. Thank you on behalf of our community. Matter of fact, we want to see in the comments all the love for Maureen, because she is dropping gems, major keys. Okay. So Maureen, we want to also make sure that we support you and your endeavors. What's the name of the book that folks can go out and get, where they can get more in-depth knowledge and a better understanding of best practices related to the marketing aspect and crowdfunding in general?
It's called Raising Money, and it's on the website. So you can go to www.CrowdieAdvisors. Crowdie Advisors.
That's great marketing, by the way. You saw how she did that? She came on the show and she was like, let me make sure you know that I know that you know that it's about Crowdie Advisors and crowdfunding. Okay?
Right. So yeah, it's Crowdie Advisors, CrowdieAdvisors.com. It's called Raising Money. And we've actually, this is our version 1 of Raising Money. And it's probably like our 4th or 5th version of the workbook in general. But, you know, entrepreneurs don't fail. We pivot, right? And but we have a second version of the book of Raising Money coming out to incorporate some of the updates that we talked about earlier. So that'll be out in the next month or so. But the Raising Money version 1 is available on the website.
So super duper exciting. And honestly, I could keep you here all day. And, you know, I really would. Matter of fact, are you going to the Bitcoin conference? Because if you're going to be in the MIA, I'm definitely trying to make sure we see each other, because we got to move the conversation offline. Yeah. Are you coming to the Bitcoin conference?
I'm thinking about it.
You need to pull up.
June 4th, right? Or
June 4th and June 5th. Yeah. Like, yeah, okay. We need you. You need to.
I know. I want to go. I mean, that's home for me. That's where I'm from.
Yeah. Oh, you're such a Haitian, because we be out here in Miami streets.
You know,
it's a little Haiti, and there is a little Haiti.
Well, you know, Haitians don't smile a lot, so I am always conscious of that. I'm like, okay, calm down. If my mom or my dad saw this, they'd be like, oh, so Glenn don't laugh. So I'm like, whoa, calm down.
I love how you just broke out in Creole. And basically she was saying, because Haitians are like about being stoic and like emotional.
Oh, right. Yes.
So like, we're not those kinds of Haitians, but we're like the new generation. But
we are the new generation.
Oh, 100%.
We smile in photos. Yes.
Because we're happy. It's like, why are you mad, son? That's how you know I'm from New York. Why are you mad, son?
Right.
Exactly. Yes, I hope you will come. As you know, Clev and company, like there's a lot of rendezvous that they're coordinating, but we could talk about that offline. But what as we kind of wind down, what are some of the, like, what's the future state of crowdfunding and the role that crypto will play in potentially expanding opportunities in the industry?
Oh, that's a great question. In terms of crowdfunding, the future is bright. And I think it's because we are now seeing that crowdfunding is more than just investments, right? It's more than just giving money. It's about community. It's about building relationships. And it's also about creating generational wealth for a population of the people who would not have had that opportunity otherwise. And yes, you know, maybe the minimum investment is $100 or $200, but you know, every step, every penny you can chip away at that gap, I think is worth it. At that wealth gap is worth it. So I think it's definitely going to be something that we will continue to see more of, especially as we see more people of color taking advantage of it and being successful. I think that just shows that it can be done, right? And when we do it, you know, the people of color who have raised money with crowdfunding,
you do it with some swag. Yeah, like I was just about to say, like we do it with such like swagoo,
right?
You know, as Beyonce taught us a couple years back, but you know, we're gonna run it back, okay? With the swagoo. Got the sauce, right. Dripping swagoo.
we just know, I mean, we inherently know how to build community, especially I think Black women, right? So I'm biased
for the culture. Like that's the thing too, like crypto for the culture. And one of the core tenets associated with CryptoTutors and the work that we do, including with the Crypto Couch, is really striving to elevate the voices and faces from the Black, brown, and female community. People like yourself are involved in driving the charge, leading the charge with respect to the direction that the industry is going in. It's so important that people see people like yourself so that they themselves can see themselves in a space that, you know, if you look at the public discourse, you would think that there are no Black people, there are no Latinx people, there are no women and people of color in general in the blockchain crypto world. And we're here to dispel that. And we're also here to ensure folks know who to connect to when they want guidance from the community, you know, Crowdie Advisors and the work that you're doing. And also being a professor. And it was so dope because the entire conversation was very professorial, you know, like I could tell that you are a native teacher. And it was so beautiful to have this conversation with you. And I could tell you were so thoughtful with like articulating, you know, the complexities of the crowdfunding and also the you know role that crypto is playing in crowdfunding. So thank you so much for doing such a phenomenal job of laymanizing what could seemingly be extremely technical, but also simplifying it, which is also, you know, a part of our mission at CryptoTutors, simplifying crypto and blockchain.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I think, you know, this program and the different programs we've seen come out have really helped crypto reach new heights, right? So, I mean, even the future of crypto is obviously going to be bright as well, because we see all these big players who were first shunning crypto, right? All of a sudden you can have them.
They're so late for the party. But
right.
We're not gonna talk about them though.
But you know, you gotta also be buyer beware, right? With some of these platforms selling crypto. But we won't get into that.
That's a conversation for another day. But I feel like we need to bring Maureen back to we're gonna bring you back, Maureen. We need you we need more of you in our lives.
Oh, I appreciate that. I'd be happy to come back. But like, if you are, you know, someone in your audience, whoever's watching this, is looking for someone to help them with the regulatory aspects or compliance issues with a Reg CF campaign, definitely reach out to me. You can go to my website. I have articles on there. I have a YouTube page at Crowdie Advisors that has videos that talks about crowdfunding, the different types of crowdfunding, etc. I also am on Instagram and Twitter at Crowdie Advisors. So yeah, thank you again for having me. I would love to meet you in person.
Oh wait, don't even worry about it. Because if I gotta fly to, you know, I don't want to put your location out there, but if I have to fly to wherever you are, Jessica's gonna pull up. So just get ready. It's gonna be somewhere in the world, but we will meet in person. And I'm fully vaccinated, so I'm gonna just be doing this.
Oh, that's good.
Oh man, but super duper grateful and appreciative to have you. And to your point around all of the different ways to access Maureen and the phenomenal work that she's doing, we're going to make sure that in the comments we have all of the connection points for you to engage. She's got a variety of options around how you engage her and the work that she's doing at Crowdie Advisors. And with that being said, again, Crypto Couch is where we strive to ensure that we are elevating the voices and faces, humanizing crypto and blockchain, and ensuring that folks, particularly those that look like us, Maureen, are educated in a manner that lends itself to turning and transforming knowledge into wealth. So thank you for joining us and helping with this enriching conversation, make that vision come to life. With that being said, Crypto Couch, we over and we
Want to learn more? Visit CryptoTutors.com.